Hey everyone, this is Jordan. I am here to do my culminating assignment just on chapters 5 through 8, and so I'm just going to kind of go through. I have a list written down, and so if you see me glancing away, that's what I'm doing, just to kind of keep myself on track. But yeah, this is my assignment for chapters 5 through 8 and just kind of explaining what we've gone over so far and what we have learned. So to start off with chapter 5, it was about language and just the fact that language is symbolic, it's creative, it has power, it can be used to build or tear down, and it's very subjective based on the culture that it is in. Um, and so the way that we communicate here in America isn't the same way that other people communicate, perhaps in Asia or Europe or South America. And even just within America, within cultures of families or religion or something like that. Um, it's a language of responsibility, and I statements are really important. So, for instance, when you are frustrated with your roommate for not cleaning the dishes, instead of saying you never clean your dishes, and accusing somebody, you take responsibility and say, I get frustrated when you don't do the dishes. So it still communicates how you feel, but it turns the situation around to you taking responsibility um, for what you have to say. Chapter 5 also talked about how men and women tend to differ in the way that they communicate, and some of it is based on, um, the biological sex, and, like men are more factual and women are more emotional. But a lot of the times it also just has to do with the way that they were raised and the stigma of being a man or a woman, or just the family that you were raised. Once again, going back to language is just super subjective. Um, the next was chapter 6, and this was about nonverbal communication. Um, and I like how each chapter kind of flows from the last one. And so language, this goes into nonverbal communication and how all communication has value, whether or not it's spoken or not. And sometimes the nonverbal is the one that speaks way louder than the words we actually say. Nonverbal communication is relational. Um, it is ambiguous, and so it can mean many different things. Um, it can occur over mediated messages. So, especially now with Facebook and Twitter and texting, social media is a huge way to convey nonverbal communication. And it's influenced by culture and gender, just similarly to the language. The examples of the nonverbal communication could be gestures, what I just did, posture, like your facial expressions, or like eye contact, and that's very different in cultures too. So, like in America, we pride eye contact, and that shows respect, but in Asian cultures, a lot of the time, eye contact is disrespectful and it's too forward. They also talked about distance, and the study of distance is, I think it's called proxemics, and how close you are to people when you're talking. And then there's also just the tone of voice, which a lot of the times, especially as girls, when we're trying to convey a point and we don't want to say the words um, outright, we use our tone of voice to communicate that. Chapter 7 was about listening, and listening is just how you receive and respond to others' messages. It's not the same as hearing. Hearing is the kind of the physiological action that takes place of the sound being received by your ear canal, whatever. But listening is actually interpreting what they have to say. And there's a difference between mindless and mindful listening. So mindless just being intentional and really trying to interpret and understand their feelings of what they're saying. And then mindless is obviously just the opposite, not paying attention. We spend 55% of our time listening. There are tons of different listening styles, but it also talks about having to fight the barriers. So there's sound and noise and physical barriers that distract us from really listening. And then there's also the information overload of too much information going on in our head, or rapid thought where we're thinking so much and we can't really focus on what the other person is saying. And it goes through I'll hit just a few of them. The types of listening responses. So there's silent listening, where you're just sitting and just taking in everything they have to say. There's empathizing, where you're trying to feel what they feel and it's taking an extra step. Then there's advising, which is all the way at the end of the spectrum, which is where you are taking what they have said, you've processed it, you've thought about how you feel about it and how you can incorporate experience into that, and then you're taking it back and helping them make a decision or figure out what they should do. This is a lot of information. It's hard to keep it underneath 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap it up in 6.5. Okay, so chapter 8 to finish. They're all so important. It's hard to just like pick a few. The last one is on emotions, and the fact that there's so many components of emotions. They're hard to explain. They can come from body changes, nonverbal reactions, the way you cognitively interpret something. But one of the key things I thought was super important was that it says you have to recognize and identify your feelings using the best language, and also take responsibility for your feelings. People don't cause your feelings. Feelings come from thoughts and the way that your thoughts process what you've heard or been interacting with, and then you choose how to feel. So someone doesn't make you mad or make you angry. Whatever the situation happened, the way you interpreted it caused you to process it a certain way, and then you decided to become angry based off of how you think. And so yeah, thoughts cause feelings, but feelings don't force acting. And so there is a difference between feeling and acting, and you don't have to act on your feelings. And just the fact that there are facilitative and debilitative feelings, and how are we going to respond to our feelings, and how are we going to let them affect us, and how we decide to handle our feelings, and are we going to take responsibility for them and have power over them, or are we going to let them have power over us? So, and then it talked about all the different fallacies, and irrational thoughts can lead to debilitative emotions like overgeneralization, or the fallacy of perfection, thinking that you always have to be right and never mess up. So I'm so sorry this video was 7.5 minutes, but this information is so important, and so I think that those are just a few of the things that I've learned so far, but that are just so key in understanding how to successfully communicate with people. So I won't talk any longer, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.